The galaxy had forgotten fear, but it remembered the moment humanity reminded them. It began not with declaration, but with a silence. For 7,000 years, the Galactic Empire reigned as the supreme authority across the stars. It had become more than government. It was law, religion, order, myth. Its banners flew from asteroid cities to gas giant palaces. War was a thing spoken of in libraries and dramatized in hollow plays. Peace, they believed, was permanent. They were wrong. The spark came from a quiet place, a colony tucked beyond the eastern spiral, far from trade lanes or military posts. It was called Orion's Cradle, a lush terraform moon orbiting a sapphire world. Mostly agricultural, mostly ignored, populated entirely by humans. And then in a single unprovoked assault, it was gone. No warning, no message, no chance for surrender. Just a sudden pulse in the sky, a white beam that split the night and turned everything below into glass. 1 billion lives evaporated in 8 seconds. Children asleep, elders tending soil, families eating dinner. The death toll climbed so fast, not even the Empire's own systems could track it in real time. And still they didn't speak. The Empire offered no apology, no investigation, no accountability. Just a single official statement, broadcast across systems with the cold precision of bureaucratic murder. The target was harboring quantum contraband. Defensive action was necessary. But everyone knew the truth. Orion's Cradle had no defenses, no fleets, no black market tech. It was a farming moon with schools and song festivals. The contraband was a lie. The destruction was a warning. The Empire was growing bold again, hungry, and they chose to test their hunger on the one species that had gone silent for millennia, humanity. They thought silence meant weakness, that the humans had grown soft, that they were shadows of their ancient past. Legends, not threats. They were wrong again, because when the skies burned over Orion's Cradle, the silence shattered. Earth did not issue a diplomatic protest. They did not appeal to the Council. They did not beg for mercy or cry for justice. They did something far worse. They answered. A transmission, encoded in ancient Terran dialect, intercepted by 100 listening posts across the galaxy, played only 2 lines. You broke the peace. We break the Empire. No fanfare, no signature, but everyone recognized the tone. It was a sound the old Terran War voice, the one whispered about in strategic academies, and feared by empires that no longer existed. The voice that once commanded the last resistance during the Sundering Wars. The voice that had fallen silent for 7,000 years. Until now, within hours, human systems flared to life. Dark zones, long thought be uninhabited or backward, lit up with energy bursts. Slip space corridors reopened. Massive quantum signatures emerged from planetary depths. Across 92 sectors, ancient Terran defense systems activated in perfect sync, as if they had been waiting. And maybe they had, because while the Empire expanded its borders and gorged itself on trade and power, humanity had disappeared. Not because they couldn't keep up, but because they had chosen to vanish, to heal, to learn, to build, and now to avenge. The first human fleet didn't appear on radar. It appeared in orbit, 37 ships, silent, sleek, monolithic in design, matte black holes that drank in starlight. Their engines didn't roar, they hummed, with a resonance that shook nearby satellites to pieces. The Empire's outpost at Tau Ren tried to raise shields. Too late. In under 60 seconds, orbital defenses were disabled with surgical precision. Every weapons array melted from the inside out by guided nanite clouds. Communications severed. Power lost. Commanders dead before they could draw breath. And still, not a single civilian harmed. The Empire called it terrorism. The galaxy called a message. A day later, human diplomats delivered it officially, not with compromise, not with debate, but with war. Humanity declared the Void Accords null and void. Every treaty torn. Every alliance burned. Every contract dissolved. To the Empire, they said, you struck the heart of our future. We will now dismantle the bones of your past. The Senate laughed. Imperial fleets rallied. Propaganda machines fired up. They told the galaxy not to worry. They told their people, the humans, were outnumbered, outdated, disorganized. But beneath their smug certainty, fear took root, because something didn't make sense. How had Earth maintained quantum-level tech surpassing even the empires? How had their fleets appeared undetected? Their weapons evolved beyond standard galactic specs. How had they moved without fold signatures, cloaked entire battalions in open space, and struck with such precision it seemed preordained? And most haunting of all, how long had they been preparing? The truth would soon come, not in words, but in fire. And as the war drums of old Earth echoed through space once more, the galaxy finally realized. They hadn't silenced the humans. They'd only been holding their breath. The Empire expected resistance. What they got was a reckoning. The war didn't begin with a fleet. It began with a blackout. 312 systems went dark in a single galactic cycle. No trade relays. No patrols. No beacons. No civilian broadcasts. Just silence, like a breath drawn in before a scream. The Empire scrambled. Analysts called it a solar flare cascade. Generals blamed faulty satellites. But they all ignored the truth pulsing through the void. Humanity was moving, and they weren't coming for attention. They were coming to end things. The first confirmed assault was in Sector 9Y Delta, the industrial heart of the Empire. 8 fortified stations, 14 cruisers, and a moon-based command center built into the planet's crust, entirely vaporized in 17 minutes. No survivors among the military targets. But here's what chilled the galaxy's spine. Every civilian left untouched, evacuated, shielded, even fed, and then a message, broadcast in hundreds of languages. We are not here to conquer. We are here to bury the disease of empires. The news reached every screen, every holodeble, every shared mind link. Entire species froze. For thousands of years, the Empire had defined war. And now, someone had rewritten the script. The Empire retaliated with the largest fleet ever assembled. Over 5,000 warships launched from across 3 arms of the spiral. They converged on Zareth, a human-controlled trade hub humans reclaimed just 40 hours earlier. They were met by 9 human vessels. Only 9. The Empire laughed, arrogantly, openly, broadcast the incoming battle as entertainment. Billions tuned in across the galaxy expecting fireworks, expecting crushed humans and triumphant banners. Instead, they witnessed annihilation. The humans didn't fire first. They let the Empire open the battle with a barrage of plasma torpedoes and dreadnought-class beam lances. Then everything stopped. Not time, not space. The Empire's weapons froze mid-flight, as if held in the palm of a god. One by one, their systems shut down. Shield dropped. Engines died. Life support failed. And above them, a phrase appeared in orbit, etched in the sky with manipulated starlight. You taught U.S. war. We learned it better. Then came the counterstrike. No explosions. No collateral. Just targeted EMP waves that turned ships into coffins of dead metal. Human boarding drones disabled AI cores before the Empire's crews even knew they were compromised. In 15 minutes, 5,000 Imperial ships were adrift. And once again, no civilians were harmed. That was the second message humanity sent. We remember who we were. Do you? Suddenly, the entire galactic military doctrine fell apart. Every battle manual burned. Every chain of command doubted. Because the humans weren't just fighting. They were winning with elegance, with discipline that made even enemy soldiers question their cause. And here's where it broke the Empire's soul. Their own people began to switch sides. Not because they agreed with the war, but because, for the first time in living memory, they saw what it meant to fight with honor. Reports flooded in, Imperial pilots landing on human cruisers to surrender, governors refusing orders to attack human-held cities, even top admirals sending encrypted messages begging for talks, not out of fear, but respect. Because the humans weren't attacking them like enemies. They were treating them like victims of their own system. The Empire had ruled by fear. Humanity advanced by conviction. and the galaxy watched it unfold like a story rewritten by fire. But not every tale ends so neatly. In retaliation for failures, the Empire ordered Orbital Strike Zero Red, a scorched earth tactic forbidden by over 200 interstellar laws. Their target was Nimera 4, a human-aligned trade planet hosting over 200 million neutral citizens. They never got the chance. As the Empire's dreadnought fleet entered Nimera's orbit, every star in the sky blinked. Not dimmed, blinked, as if space itself was watching. A tremor tore through subspace, and then the sky opened. From a hidden fold rift, something emerged, something old. A Terran Leviathan, a weapon of war from the last era of blood, thought extinct, thought impossible, for kilometers long. Entirely AI piloted, armored in null matter. It didn't fire weapons. It consumed them. Beams aimed at it vanished into its hull. Missiles spiraled away, confused by anti-thought defenses. The dreadnoughts panicked, fired wildly, toward space, and then fell silent one by one, as if smothered by a celestial hand. The Empire called impossible. The galaxy whispered its name from ancient records. Ashbringer. One ship. Destroyed 77 capital vessels. Saved 200 million lives. And left behind a signal beacon transmitting one phrase in Terran Standard. We are what you made us. We are what you feared we'd become. We are coming. Panic took root in the Empire's core. They doubled their propaganda. They painted humans as monsters, as ghosts of a bloody past. But the more they screamed, the more they exposed themselves. Because people across the stars weren't asking, how do we stop the humans? They were asking, we're the humans, right? The shift had begun. A storm was coming, and it had a human face. When giants fall, it isn't the roar that terrifies the world. It's the silence that follows. The Empire had faced uprisings before. Revolts, rebellions, border conflicts. They were seasoned in the art of suppression. And when humanity rose, they thought this would be the same. A few brutal battles, a media spin, strategic assassinations. And then, as always, order would return. But this wasn't a rebellion. This wasn't a revolt. This was a systemic collapse wearing the armor of vengeance, and the face of a people who had forgotten nothing. At first, the Empire scrambled. Memos flooded command networks. Emergency war protocols were activated. Thousands of battle fleets were mobilized and dispatched across human-aligned sectors. Every admiral was issued a single order: crush the Terran resurgence, whatever the cost. The cost was everything, because the moment those fleets left port, they entered the kill box. Humanity had mapped them, not just the routes, but the commanders, the personalities, the psychology. Every admiral had a profile. Every fleet a counter-strategy. Human AIs, silent for centuries, woke in tandem with emotionless precision, and they executed. One fleet vanished at the edge of the Zyrian belt. Another tried to hide near a neutron star, and was disassembled molecule by Terran particle nets. No explosions, no cries for help, just emptiness, recorded and uploaded to public networks with timestamps and coordinates. Suddenly, space itself didn't feel safe. The Empire, for the first time in memory, didn't know where its enemies were, but humanity knew everything. Because while the Empire celebrated centuries of glory, humans had been listening, tapping relay towers, embedding sleeper probes, planning deep code agents in galactic infrastructure. They didn't just strike military targets. They dismantled the concept of control. In one planetary cycle, every Imperial AI command relay received a signal, a virus built from ancient Terran code that erased their override protocols. Not a single weapon fired, but tens of thousands of defense systems simply stopped working. Planetary shields stayed down. Border sensors blinked into static. Civilian networks broadcast old Earth music over government frequencies. The Empire's capital, Lux Prime, went dark for 6 hours. No data, no orders, no oxygen in half its districts. And when the lights came back, the Terran anthem was playing. No lyrics, just orchestral defiance echoing across a broken sky. It was no longer about war. It was humiliation. Imperial morale cracked. And not just among civilians, because the troops, the ones bred for loyalty, the ones trained from birth to follow the banner, began to question why they were fighting, and more importantly, for whom. In one sector alone, 34,000 soldiers refused to deploy. In another, a cruiser's crew mutinied, redirected their ship to a human rendezvous point, and surrendered the moment they exited hyperspace. But the most shocking moment came on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Revenant. Admiral Cal Vex, descendant of the dynasty of conquerors, stood before his command crew and said, "We are dying a war we cannot win, for an empire that no longer leads." And then he issued the order to join the humans. It sent shockwaves through the empire. News feeds tried to spin it. Treason, they cried. Desperation. But it was too late, because as defection spread like wildfire, another realization dawned across the stars. Humanity didn't just come to fight. They came to liberate. Planet after planet fell, but not to fire, to freedom. On Arelon 6, when human forces arrived, the populace opened their gates, not out of fear, but hope. Statues of the Empress were toppled by civilians, not soldiers. Children carried signs written in Terran Standard. Welcome back. On Rhineth, prisoners of war, held without trial for decades, were freed by Terran AI drones before any shots were fired. On Solari Station, Imperial governors tried to self-destruct their data cores before fleeing. They failed. Terran agents seized everything and exposed years of war crimes to the entire galaxy. Uncut, unedited, undeniable. The illusion was shattered. And as the truth poured out, the question that once whispered in private now screamed through every corridor of galactic space. What exactly did the Empire protect us from except ourselves? The Empress, now isolated within the titanium walls of the Palace of Stars, ordered a counterstrike, a desperate, reckless gamble, a superweapon hidden for centuries, Project Solstice. It would collapse a star near the Terran frontier, sacrifice a system of 5 billion people to send a message. But when they launched it, something happened. The missile never reached its destination, because halfway through its trajectory, it vanished, intercepted by a Terran device the Empire had never seen. Not a weapon, a time-fold interceptor, technology thought theoretical. It bent the missile's trajectory through folded space and dropped it directly into the Empire's own command satellite array. 10% of the Empire's data infrastructure, gone in a single flash. That was the message humanity sent back. You escalate. We adapt. You threaten. We evolve. You destroy. We rebuild stronger. And across every world, across every fleet, the Empire's loyalists looked at their leaders and saw what the galaxy had refused to admit for centuries. The Empire wasn't strong. It was simply unchallenged. Until now. Now, there was a mirror held to its face, and the reflection staring back had Terran eyes. Some wars are fought with weapons, others with memory. When the Empire struck Orion's cradle, they thought they were attacking a colony. What they really did was wake the dead. Across forgotten sectors, in ancient vaults carved into asteroids and moons, something began to stir. Not machines, not weapons, but alliances, old ones, broken ones, oaths etched into living stone and sealed in dormant code, treaties signed in the blood of the last galactic war, when humanity wasn't feared but followed. The galaxy had forgotten those bonds. The Empire made sure of that, but humans never forget. And now, neither did their allies. It started with the Velnari, crystalline beings once known as the Star Architects, brilliant, translucent, with minds that thought in music and light. They hadn't spoken to the galaxy in over 3,000 years, thought extinct, gone into the deep dark after the sundering. But the humans called, and the Velnari answered. In orbit over the mining world of Karos, an Imperial fleet prepared to bombard rebel cities when the skies shifted. Not with ships, but with shapes. Velnari constructs, each the size of a mountain, emerged from phase space, twisting, hovering, shimmering like sentient geometry. They didn't fire a single shot. They didn't need to. They sang. A single resonant frequency. Pure harmonic energy. Every Imperial ship, engines melted. AI cores crashed. Crews left unconscious, not dead, their minds overwhelmed by peace, so deep it stunned even battle-hardened veterans. No one knew what to call it, except the humans. They called it Valnari mercy. The Empire called it betrayal. They were wrong. It was payback. And the Valnari weren't alone. Next came the Mixari Hive, the silent swarm that vanished into nebula clouds 2,000 years ago after the Great Devouring. Everyone assumed they'd been consumed by war. But they weren't dead. They were waiting. And now, their queens returned, not with rage, but with clarity. They remembered the humans who had saved their eggs from extinction, who gave them safe moons when the rest of the galaxy turned away. So the Mixari didn't just fight alongside humans. They became shields. Entire systems under attack were suddenly enveloped in living bio-walls. Mixari Leviathan swarms absorbing bombardments, intercepting missiles, carrying injured civilians into their own nests for healing. A reporter embedded with an Imperial fleet leaked one haunting message. They don't scream when they charge. They sing lullabies, and it's the most terrifying thing I've ever heard. Still, the Empire believed it could weather the storm. After all, allies were nice, but wars are won with weapons. They didn't realize humanity had plenty of those too, buried in vaults under Martian crust, hidden in the hollow moons of Pluto, folded into subdimensional space by long-forgotten AI caretakers. They were called the Vaulted Ones, war machines too powerful to be used during peacetime, locked away after the last Terran convergence war under planetary decree. Now, the decree was lifted, and the Sentinel Ring awoke. Orbiting Earth, the Sentinel Ring was an ancient defense array, a planetary intelligence older than most of the Empire's races. It reactivated with a single priority: prepare Earth for total defense mode. But it didn't just protect. It broadcasted, a signal bouncing off dark relays and buried communication nodes long thought dead. One by one, lost human colonies lit up, systems erased from maps, outposts sealed by time, generation ships long presumed to drift. They returned, not broken, not forgotten, ready. In the Seraph Cluster, the descendants of the Third Exodus, humans who left the galaxy's core 6,000 years ago, emerged with living ships, powered by organic computational fusion. They sent one message: we are the children of silence, and we remember what was done to our ancestors. In the Polaris Rift, sleeper colonies woke with war chants carved into their orbital rings. Drones launched from icy oceans, bearing ancient family crests and weapons the galaxy couldn't even identify. One by one, the entire human diaspora stood up, and suddenly, the Empire realized they were never fighting Earth. They were fighting humanity, a web of cultures, beliefs, and worlds far greater than any central government. They hadn't built an army. They had reignited a civilization. The Empress's advisors pleaded for caution. They whispered of ancient threats, of prophecies long dismissed. And then the Lutheri returned. Oh, the Lutheri, the swarm minds, the last of the thought tide, once allies of humanity, then enemies, then myth. And yet, in the ruins of the Empire's outer sectors, the Lutheri hive fleets appeared, not with vengeance, but with logic. They had calculated the outcome of the war. With 99.92% certainty, humanity would win. Their choice was simple. So they switched sides, publicly, and in doing so, shattered the last illusion of imperial superiority. The Empress, now isolated behind collapsing fleets and broken chains of command, sent a final encrypted order to her Black Ops division: initiate Project Oblivion, a fail-safe protocol designed to erase entire star systems, to scorch away any world humanity could take. But she was too late. Before the code could execute, an ancient human AI, Eidolon Prime, buried inside the Empire's own hypercore infrastructure, overrode the sequence. You do not get to erase what you cannot control, the AI said, in the voice of Earth's first unified leader. This galaxy no longer belongs to empires. It belongs to the memory of the broken. And with that, the war's trajectory changed forever. The Empire was no longer losing control. It had already lost it. It didn't end with an explosion. It ended with a mirror, held to the face of an empire that could no longer recognize itself. The war should have ended in blood. That's what the galaxy expected. That's what the Empire deserved. Billions dead, cities leveled, flags burned. But humanity had already moved beyond war. They weren't here for vengeance. They were here to redefine the future. The last stand of the Galactic Empire wasn't a battle. It was a conversation, forced by overwhelming power, undeniable truth, and the haunting realization that the galaxy's most feared species had, somehow, become its most necessary. The humans didn't take the Imperial capital with fire. They took it with light. 1,000 Terran vessels encircled Lux Prime, the once proud jewel of the Empire, now hollow, flickering, gutted by internal betrayal. The city's sky went black as Terran ships eclipsed every star. They didn't fire. Instead, they broadcast a single message to the entire planet. We are not your conquerors. We are the consequence you chose. No fleet moved. No orders came. The Empress, now alone inside her obsidian throne chamber, watched in silence as her rule evaporated, not with defiance, but indifference. And then they sent her. Humanity didn't send a general, not a war hero, not a fleet commander. They sent a historian, Ada Lyre, unarmed, unarmored, unknown to most of the galaxy. But in her voice was the weight of 7,000 years of silence. She stepped into the Imperial Senate. Once a room filled with gods, now a grave of ambition. Holograms flickered in ruin. Senators stared down at her with tired eyes and fractured minds. And she spoke, slowly, clearly, without rage. You struck the first blow thinking we were weak. You thought peace made us soft. You thought silence meant surrender. You were wrong. She walked to the center of the chamber, alone, but never unprotected. Outside, in orbit, every Terran fleet stood ready, not to fire, but to listen. Ada continued, we could have turned your cities to dust. You earned that fate. We could have hunted your fleets into extinction. You made that bed. But humanity has learned what you have not. Power is not measured by destruction. It is measured by what you choose not to destroy. Silence gripped the chamber. Then she gave them the final terms. Not demands, not ultimatums. A choice. Option 1, you resist. You scatter your fleets. You cling to illusion. We dismantle your empire, brick by brick, system by system. You will lose, and your people will suffer for your pride. Option 2, you dissolve the empire yourselves. Step down. Surrender authority. Let the world you claimed as property speak for themselves. Let them choose their own futures. No reparations. No tributes. No chains. Just freedom and memory and a place in a galaxy where no one rules by fear again. The Empress said nothing. She didn't have to, because the galaxy had already decided. In the following days, systems once loyal to the Empire declared independence in droves. From the icy moons of Rythus to the lush oceans of Solian, planets rose not in rebellion, but in renewal. Senators abandoned their titles. Fleets powered down. Trade guilds once loyal to the Empire formed the Free Systems Compact, pledging a new charter cooperative governance. No species above another. No voice silenced. And humanity? They left. Not all. Not completely. But they didn't build a throne. They didn't carve a new empire. They didn't declare themselves rulers. They vanished back into the stars, their fleets returning to their borders. Watchful, ready, but silent once again, because the message had been delivered. We are not your overlords. We are your reminder. The Velnari returned to crafting worlds with song. The Mixari receded into their bioclouds, birthing a new generation with tales of Terran honor. The Lutheri swarm disbanded entirely, choosing, for the first time in their history, to no longer speak as one, but to learn as many. A new era dawned, not perfect, not without scars, but one shaped by a lesson none would forget. Silence is not weakness. Restraint is not cowardice. And peace is not permission. Across the galaxy, children grew up studying not the rise of the Galactic Empire, but its fall. They learned the date Orion's cradle burned. They learned the name of the ship that intercepted Project Solstice. They learned the speech Ada Lyre gave, recorded in every language known to the stars. And every year, on the day once marked by the Empire's founding, millions now celebrate a new galactic tradition, the Day of Return, a day not of conquest, but of warning and of hope, because while humanity may sleep, the stars now know they do not sleep.